From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet on the Ticats Audio Network. It is week 8. We are in Ottawa, Friday, July 28th for the Ticats' second of 3 tilts against the Ottawa Redblacks. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-pilot, Mike Daly. And Mike, this one is a lot different than the first battle that these two teams had, because since that date 3 weeks ago, Ottawa has taken down Calgary and Winnipeg in some overtime thrillers, and the Ticats have had a QB change. And so what's this game's main storyline, or how does this one fit into the fabric of this season?
Well, it's almost like a reverse of roles here, right? Because I remember talking about the Ottawa game where Dustin Crum was first coming in, and you're like, oh, what's this guy going to be able to do? We're not really sure yet. And now Bo Levi Mitchell is kind of in that spot, right? He's been out for so long. It's kind of like, okay, what kind of Bo Levi Mitchell are we going to get in this first game back from injury? You know what I mean? Being sitting out for a little bit. There's a little rust that he'll have to shake off. Corey, you and I have been there before, where if you just don't play football for a while, even tackle football where, the practice is nobody's really touching you, all that stuff. There's a little rust that you got to work through. And so it'll be interesting because it's like kind of the reverse of roles. And Ottawa is one of the hottest teams in the CFL right now. And it is exciting to watch them. They are doing a lot of things really, really well. So what a test for the Ticats and for Bo Levi Mitchell to come back and see what he can do.
And Bo Levi Mitchell is back for this game, the first in the second third of the season. They split the season into 6 games apiece. They had 4 division games in the first third. They have 4 division games in this second third. And in the final third of the season, there are only 2 games against division opponents. So this one versus Ottawa is even more significant because the Ticats are fighting to get into that playoff picture. It's almost the time to start thinking about those scenarios, and a battle against Ottawa is going to be very crucial for them getting into one of those playoff spots, especially because Toronto is extending their lead in the East Division right now. They remain undefeated, and Montreal and Ottawa will be the team's fighting it out, trying to get into that last spot. Right now, Montreal 2-3, Ottawa is 3-3, and the Ticats, of course, 2-4. So let's see how these teams match up this time around. Bo Levi Mitchell back in the saddle. What's that doing for the opponents in their planning? What's that doing for this Ticats offense in how they're approaching this game? I mean, there's been a lot made about Bo Levi Mitchell, but in his first 2 games, it was 4 interceptions and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, he's going to have to prove himself again, right? Bo Levi Mitchell's going to have to come in there and prove himself again. But the Ticat fans, and you and I, Court, have been itching for this because we've just watched the Ticats offense kind of sputter their way in the past 2 weeks. With Powell being new, like, that's just what's going to happen, right? And I say that, but then you see what Dustin Crum does on the other side. But for Bo Levi Mitchell to come back, he is going to have to reintroduce himself in this, right? Ottawa's defense is going to be planning for the Bo Levi Mitchell that they know. They're not going to look at the 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions things. They're going to say, okay, this is what he does well. This is what he does not do so well. And what they're going to do is they're going to see, okay, is Bo Levi Mitchell what he's supposed to be for this Ticats offense, right? And I know on that Ticat side, right, Tommy Condell probably open up that playbook a little bit more because of just the trust and the experience that Bo Levi has. But the other big thing here is just to see how he gets off the start, right off the bat, how he comes out, what it looks like that first drive, what it looks like that second drive. and just to see if he can get rolling, right? Because this is exactly what this Ticats offense needs, because it has been struggling for the past couple of weeks. So it'll be good to have him back, and I'm sure it'll give a few of the guys in that huddle some energy.
Yes, and that huddle will have some familiar faces. Tim White, Terry Godwin, Tyreek McAllister, a guy we've been excited about over the past couple of weeks, Duke Williams, Richie Sindani, and James Butler. Of course, the folks that we've been talking about all the way up until this point of season. An addition has been made, though, with Sean Thomas Erlington. So he's coming back from injury. What kind of elements does his game provide to this offense, and how do these Red Blacks need to prepare for STE when he's in the game?
Yeah, good question. Sean Thomas Erlington has always been used in the past as a receiving running back. So that means they put him in there, they'll hand the ball off a couple times, but he's practically just another receiver. It's a matchup issue where you get him in the game with a guy like James Butler, because now you're not sure who's going to get the ball on a handoff. You're not sure who's going to empty out a little bit early, right? Stand beside Bo Levi Mitchell. He's going to start getting into his cadence. Red 80, and then all of a sudden somebody's going to kind of start leaking out, and then you're not sure who you're going to have to cover. My question for you, though, Court, is always in the past, Sean Thomas Erlington has been a great counterpunch to somebody that they've had in, right? Whether that's, Wills, right? Wes Hills was in. I can't believe I got his name wrong, but Wes Hills was in, right? Because I played with them. But it was like these bigger body backs that were able to just pound the ball, but maybe the routes weren't so great. James Butler is really that all-around back. We've been talking about this. So how do you see Sean Thomas Erlington's role in this game back? Because James Butler is that, passing, blocking, running back that everybody kind of wishes they had.
Well, I think JB really does bring all those three dimensions of a triple threat to the game, but if he gets a heavy dose, which we do expect him to get, last week he was contained on 8 carries. I think he ended up with something like 14 yards. So he'll be looking to bounce back from that. But given a heavy workload, I think after you get a couple first downs, having a guy like Sean Thomas Erlington allows Tommy Condell to have the confidence to take JB out of the game, let him get a puff, let him get his wind back, and still leaves you open to calling the majority of the plays that you would want to call with James Butler in the game, whether those be screens, whether those be the quick passing game, or whether it's just straight up turning around and handing it off to him. He's an able back. He has got great change of direction, solid instincts, uncanny balance, and rumor has it that he's been known to jump over a person or two in a single bound. So Sean Thomas Erlington is one of those change of pace guys that keeps the defense on their toes and creates matchup problems for linebackers who have to cover him in space. And I think it's more so he'll also be able to provide a lift on special teams in addition to that full-time offensive production that he can provide if he's needed to do that. So see him in the punt protection, see him on kickoff return potentially. I think that Jeff Reinbold will have things drawn up for STE to get in the mix all over. And speaking of getting into the mix, some other special teams type changes with Voshawn Joseph coming into the lineup. He's a guy who made a lot of plays on special teams last year. And, Lawrence Woods III coming out of the lineup completely. He's a guy who went down onto the practice roster. So what does that tell you about the makeup of this defense? And what does that tell you about this special teams unit, who to this point in the year has been probably the most consistent unit on this team?
Yeah, I think if you start with Lawrence Woods, right? Or Richard Leonard, we had talked about it. Lawrence Woods has started this season at field corner, but now with the trust of Tunde in there at field half, right? Stavros playing well at free safety, and Richard Leonard playing like an all-star at field corner. I just don't think there's a space for Lawrence Woods. And now with Tyreek McAllister doing what he's doing, leading the league in kickoff return average, right? We've seen him break big return after big return after big offensive play. He's really been a bright spot for this Ticats. I just don't think there was a space for Lawrence Woods, right? And not to say that they won't need him a little bit later in the season right now, but currently the Ticats, the way their roster's kind of panning itself out, is that back end, that DB core that we were talking about that needed some gelling together, kind of seems to have found their way a little bit, right? The people that they're going to be playing with got a little experience out at that field corner with Richard in there. So, and then on the other point that you made, Voshan Joseph, he is an animal on special teams. I don't know how else to say it, right? He is bigger, faster, stronger than most of the guys that he's going to go up against, and he plays with a reckless abandon that is fun to watch, right? So it's going to be his first game back, and just like Bo Levi Mitchell, nobody's safe from the little bit of rust you're going to have to work through, but Voshan Joseph is a fun player to watch, and he kind of reminds me a little bit like Kyle Wilson out there on special teams, who's going to be lined up probably right beside him on most of those punt units, those kickoff units. So look for big plays to be made between those two.
Yeah, and Hamilton is one of the best teams in the league as a punt unit in snuffing out the opponent's returns, so he can be counted on to flash there with the list of other players who have cut their teeth on that special teams unit. I think it also speaks to the trust that they developed in Stavros Katsantonis, because basically what they're saying is we have to have this guy on the field. And whether that's because of his playmaking ability or his ability to get guys lined up, or just the fact that, you know, him and Tunde, they've got great experience playing together, great chemistry, and that kind of stuff permeates the rest of the team when you get guys who have those intangibles working together. So they'll be on the field. And on the offensive side of the ball, that offensive line for Ottawa, they will be under pressure from the likes of Casey Sales and Ted Laurent, Trey Crawford, and Malik Carney. Now, this defensive line, a lot's been made about them and what they were supposed to do this year. The Ottawa offensive line has given up 20 sacks, 14 in the last 3 games. Do you think that potentially this could be an area where Ottawa might have a chink in their armor? Because when we talk about that Ottawa offense, Dustin Crum, this guy has been making plays with his legs. He's averaging over 80 rushing a game, averaging 220 passing in the last 3 games, but he has been sacked. So if the Ticats are to attack this Ottawa offense, is the key getting to the quarterback?
Yeah, but it's getting to the quarterback, I think, in a certain way that puts a little pressure on the D-line. So when you look at the D-line, you know, you want to start seeing a guy like Malik Carney or Trey Crawford in this game be able to just win their battle, a one-on-one battle with the offensive lineman, win that and get the quarterback down, right? Because what Dustin Crum's doing, and the reason Ottawa has given up so many sacks, is he's holding the ball for a while. He's going through his reads and it's taking some time, right? And that's why he's running so much, because he is a young quarterback. So when you go through your reads, he's going to look at one receiver. If he doesn't like it, he looks at the second receiver. This is the difference where a Bo Levi Mitchell or these experienced quarterbacks can go from that one receiver to look at a second receiver and then find their outlet, right? Might be a running back, might be somebody that's right in front of their face, right? Don't like any of my first 2 reads. Now I'll just dump it off, get it out of my hands into a playmaker's hands. Well, what Dustin Crum's doing is he's going 1 read, maybe 2 reads, and then he's like, I got to get out of here. And he starts running, right? So that's where those sacks are going to come up. But the only way that happens is to only be able to rush 4 so you can take away his first read and his second read. So he has to run. But then that does put pressure on this D-line to win their battles and get Dustin Crum down to the ground. I think because you saw Calgary try to do this with a spy on Dustin Crum, where they just kind of had one person follow him around, but then that takes that person out of coverage, right? One of the linebackers. So I think when you look at this game, those ends, those D linemen especially, are going to have to keep him in the pocket, but also get to him at the same time so that he can't escape from the outside or inside through those B gaps that we talk about between the tackles and the guards of the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think it will be interesting to see how Mark Washington wants to play this one, because Dustin Crum doesn't stretch the field. He's only thrown the ball over 20 yards twice, if the stats do show correctly. Or completed, I should say. And he was 19 out of 22 on his throws that were under 10 yards as of late. So I think what that tells me is quick game Sally. And Sally is just that RPO style play action and then a short pass, which is either a slant, a in, a out, a curl, or something of that nature. And those are high percentage throws, which would explain how last week he had 79% completion, because you're throwing it to people who are not that far away. So if that's the game plan, possess the ball, bleed the clock, of which they do a great job, then really I agree with you. It's got to be 4-man rush and cover up the receivers. And maybe you're playing a little bit of zone or combo coverage so that the defenders have visibility into the backfield. So when he does scramble, everybody's eyes aren't tied to their man running down the field and just unaware of the quarterback escaping the pocket. I would expect to see a heavy dose of zone coverage and potentially some zone dogs, some zone blitzes, just to keep him on his toes and flush him away from his throwing hand, so that as he is scrambling, it's harder for him to find those outlets and those checkdowns. But there's weapons on that offense. And I mean, maybe these aren't the names that we came into the season thinking about, but Justin Hardy, he's leading the CFL with 32 receptions, and Nate Bahar is tied for 5th with 29. So, I mean, he had a clutch one in overtime when we saw their last game. Can you just run zone against this offense, or these guys that you really have to draw up schemes for?
Well, you said it perfectly, right? They're gonna, Justin Hardy, Nate Bahar, they're leading the league in receptions, but that's because they are running those short underneath routes that are easy for Dustin Crum to hit, right? And don't forget, it wasn't Dustin Crum this whole time either, right? So all these stats can be skewed a little bit, but this last game, you're absolutely right. Nate Bahar was a focal point for Dustin Crum, and so was Justin Hardy. So if you don't think Mark Washington and the crew have that pinned down from film, right, what do we have to take away? Well, we have to take away him running the ball, and we can't let him get the ball to Justin Hardy or Nate Bahar, right? It's always going to be that famous thing, make them dribble left-handed, right? Make them go the hard route, make it not what they normally do. And what they normally do is Dustin Crum running around and passing the ball to Nate Bahar and Justin Hardy. So look for some stuff where they're going to try to just take those away and make a guy maybe like a Jalen Acklin try to beat you this game, right? Maybe have Tunde and Jalen Acklin in one-on-ones, because Mark Washington is saying, you're not going to throw it to Jalen. You're trying to find Nate Bahar, Justin Hardy. So I'm going to say, hey, Tunde, let's see you cover Jalen the whole game by yourself. Here we go.
Or maybe it's Ante Milanovic-Litre, who's the secret weapon, because he's found the end zone more than any of these guys. So let's flip the script, though, and let's talk about Ottawa's defense, because the quarterbacks get all the love. They get all the spotlight. They get all the attention. But a guy like Brandon Dandridge, leading the CFL in non-offensive touchdowns with a punt return touchdown, 2 pick sixes. That's nothing to scoff at. That's a playmaker, right? One time might be lucky, right place, right time, but to find the end zone 3 times, you got to be living right. And then you got veterans like Cleon Lang, Abdul Kenna, Lorenzo Malden, who award winner last year, great player. So what do we have to prepare for to see from a defensive perspective from Ottawa, and how do you think that the Ticats attack Ottawa's D?
Well, so Ottawa's defense, where they're winning right now, is against the run. They're phenomenal at stopping the run. And right now, the Ticats have, there was that one game against Edmonton where they gave James Butler the ball a ton, right? But then these past couple of games maybe got away from it a little bit. And again, if you're down, it's hard to run the ball consistently, right? If you're down early, it's hard to run the ball. But it's going to be that, immovable object versus unstoppable force type thing with James Butler and this Ottawa's defense, right? How often, and Sean Thomas Erlington in this case as well. How often is Tommy and this offense going to keep trying to break that Ottawa defense with the run, right? How many times are they going to keep doing that? Because especially when you're shaking off the rust, like a Bo Levi Mitchell will be trying to get back into the groove of it, that's where that run game is going to come in absolutely clutch, right? So it'll be interesting to see, that battle between Tommy Condell and how much he wants to run the ball versus is it really working? Because if you look at Ottawa on the reverse side, they're giving up so many yards in the air, especially the past two games. I don't know how to say it, right? It's like the Jekyll and Hyde. They are very good against the run defense, but past two games, Zach Claros, 369 yards in the air, right? Jake Meyer in that overtime game, 450 yards in the air. And when if you watch that game, it was bombs, constant bombs. And so it's one of those things where, Court, you and I have been coaches for a very long time, and we dabbled every now and then. When you come up against a team that's very good at stopping the run, but gives up a ton of yards in the air, do you just say, hey, why don't we just throw it every single down? Or do you try to say, I'm the one that can run the ball in this defense?
If I know Tommy like I think I do, I think he'll be glad to throw the ball 65 times. So I can expect Tim to come out with some track spikes on. I expect Duke Williams to run everything 12 yards and deeper. And you know what I would be very excited about? If Terry Godwin got a lot more looks as a primary, because, he had 103 yards receiving in his last game, third receiver for the Ticats to hit the century mark on the year. I really think he could be the guy who really gets this offense clicking. You need that reliable, sure-handed, great route runner, guy who can catch it in traffic, get banged up. Of course, the explosive plays are outstanding, but those intermediate chunks, they go a long way too, especially because you're not always going to win first down. And the Ticats haven't been the absolute best team on first down, which sets up tough second downs. So you need great receivers who can run routes, find soft spots in the zone. I think Terry Godwin could be that guy. So let's talk about special teams before we get to the matchups. We got two phenomenal kickers on the field tonight. I mean, between Mark Leggio and Lewis Ward, who's the CFL's all-time leader by percentage, kicking just under 90% on over 200 kicks. I think this game could be really down to the wire, and it could be dramatic just because of where these two teams are at. They're division rival kind of teams, and they both are going to score when they get inside the 50 based on their kickers. How does that change the coach's mentality, knowing that you got a guy like Lewis Ward on the other sideline? Does that mean that you have to at least get 3 on the drives? I mean, the Ticats let Toronto score on like 3 out of 5 of their opening possessions. Do you have to go down and get touchdowns when you know the other team is at least going to get field goals every single time they're across midfield?
Yeah, I think, when you compare the touchdowns and the field goals thing and just the score of these games of previous weeks, right? Like, they're upwards of, high 20s, 30s. The last game with Ottawa was 40 points. You're not going to win by just kicking a bunch of field goals. You have to score. Now, that being said, having field goal kickers, obviously we've talked about this. It allows you to open up your playbook once you get kind of around the 40-yard line, 40 yards away from the end zone, because you know that, okay, I am going to come away with this on points. Let's try to steal a touchdown here and kind of drop maybe a double move for a guy like Tim White, right? Something that you can take a shot at the end zone to try to score quickly. Because like this Ottawa offense, like you said, they hold on to the ball forever, right? They are a possession team. So when they're doing that, if you're just kicking one field goal every quarter, not a math guy, but that's not very good to finish. That's not very good to finish the game, right? Like, you're not going to win many games like that. So you do have to score touchdowns when you get that opportunity. But, Court, I can tell that Mark Leggio is sneakily becoming one of your favorite players on this team because of what he's been able to do when you figured a Seth Small was gonna be around, right?
Absolutely. I was crushed when Seth Small wasn't a part of this team before. But then, this week when I went down and I watched practice live, I got a little reassurance because Mark Leggio, this guy has been in the weight room. This guy's jacked. He's jacked. So if we need him, we could possibly put him in at another position too. But for now, 15 out of 15 on the year, he's doing a damn good job kicking that ball. So, hey, keep kicking it, man. Hopefully we don't have to call your number as frequently, but when we do, I know you'll be there where we need you. And let's just talk about being there. Jovan Santos Knox, a guy Ticats fans are very familiar with. He's going to be back in the mix. I want you to talk about him, and I want you to talk about him and who he could match up with on this Ticats offense, because that's a key matchup we're definitely going to be circling. He had over 100 tackles for the Ticats last year.
Yeah, and I know Jovan personally, and he's a good friend, so I know exactly how he's approaching this game and the type of player he is. He's one of these players where he is extremely smart. He's going to know absolutely everything about the defense, and he's going to know a lot about the Ticats offense because he had got to practice against it, right? And that's the best way you learn about an offense, is seeing it day in, day out. Where he's going to match up is against James Butler, obviously, right? With this Ottawa defense being so good against the run, that doesn't mean that I believe the Ticats should stop handing the ball to James Butler. Because right now, James Butler, for me, is the best player that's on this offense. He's able to do it all. When you give him the ball, he's able to take over these games. So that's where my matchup is going to be, because I know Jovan Santos Knox, he's a great player, and he's playing with the Ottawa defense that's doing a great job of stopping the rush. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this matchup between them, because James Butler is the best back in the league. And if the Ticats are really going to win this game, it's going to be handing that ball off to James Butler more times, I feel, than you'd want to be comfortable against an Ottawa defense that's like this.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll be watching Jovan Santos Knox too. I'm also going to be watching Mr. Impact himself, the king of the Haitian rip, Ted Laurent. He has got to have the highest production per play out of any player on this Ticats defense, because he's in a rotational spot. Defensive tackle is tough. It's an all-out effort. Two guys leaning on you. You got 300 pounds of flesh you got to wade through, and then you're probably just going to clog up space until you eventually get your opportunity to make a play. This guy does it better than anyone. The way he anchors in there, he draws a line in the sand and says, you're not running here. But he's had tackles in the backfield. He's had forced fumbles. He's had sacks this year. Big impact plays. I want to see how he does against this offensive line where we believe that there's an opportunity. If the Ticats are going to find a way, you don't want to be another string in the story of this dramatic highlight reel victory Ottawa team. You want to cut that off right now, nip it in the bud. I think Ted getting a crumb would be a beautiful sight, and it wouldn't be his first, because he's a big guy and I heard he likes to snack. So who else?
And Court, at 36 years old, he's still doing it like that, which is incredible.
Oh man, he's a phenomenon right now. If they can protect his time that he plays so that he doesn't have to play 60 snaps, I don't know if he could get him an oxygen tank, get him up to 40 snaps a game, put him in there when it counts. I think he's going to be super effective, but that's going to require them to get off the field on second down as a defense. The Ticats are going to have to be able to contain that scramble. They're going to have to, plaster on the receivers. That's the call that people make in the defensive backfield. After the initial play is broken down, plaster. That means get stuck to somebody, find a body, and make sure that they don't get a cheap conversion and extend the drive. If they can get off the field, keep their D-line fresh, keep Teddy fresh, then I think they got their greatest opportunity to come away with a victory. Outside of everybody we spoke about today, or maybe there's somebody we touched on briefly, who do you want to highlight in this game? Who are you going to focus on? Who's the X factor? Who's going to determine the outcome?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question when you say who's the X factor. It is Bo Levi Mitchell. Right, him coming back. This is what everybody's looking for. It's what Tiger Town's looking for. It's what the coaches are looking for. It's what the players out there on the field with him are looking for. He has to be the quarterback that the Ticats brought in that they thought they were going to get, right? He needs to take this game over. He needs to show them that, yeah, you know what? Hamilton needs to start blowing out some of these East opponents because they got to start making a run, right? Court, you brought it up at the beginning. The amount of East games that are early in the season, you just don't normally see that, right? That's why always at the end of the season there's this battle of, you know, if Hamilton beats Ottawa, then they're in at the third spot. But that's happening now, right? That these East Division battles are super important when you see how this is panning out and how close Montreal, Ottawa, and Hamilton are. These games are extremely important for the playoff push, where you're going to seed, and if you're going to make the playoffs. And Bo Levi Mitchell, the reason he is here is to make the playoffs and to win a Grey Cup. So this X factor for this game is definitely Bo, and you know, there's no two ways around it. He is the focal point of this game.
Hey, and when things turn around, there's always some point. They say it's hard to top tick or catch the falling knife in a stock market, but hey, I'm going to say it. If Bo comes out and throws 4 touchdowns, it's on. But I'm an eternal optimist. I believe in it. You know, it's going to be his 7th game as a Ticat, his 3rd as a starter. You know, he's deeper into it. He understands things. He's had a chance to slow it down, try it himself, watch someone else do it. I just think that it's time, and there's no better opponent than a division opponent who you know you want to lock in that season series against, and you're going to do it tonight at TD Place in Ottawa, 7:30 Eastern. It's the Hamilton Tiger Cats versus the Ottawa Redblacks. Where else would you rather be? And if you can't be there, you know where to listen, .ticats.ca on the Ticats Audio Network. They got the live stream. RJ Broadhead, Luke Tasker, they're going to call the game. And before that, you can catch Andy and Bubba with the pregame to get you all set. This has been Tiger Cats Game Day presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet. My name's Courtney Stephen. As always, joined by Mike Daly. And we hope you have a great game day. Catch you next time. Peace.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.